Hey guys, sorry it's been a while, but welcome back to Metalomaniac's Hangout. As it was being conceived, arcades were booming and side-scrolling beat-em-ups were getting ready to explode. With the release and popularity of Double Dragon in '87, it wouldn't be long before the genre made its way onto home consoles. There have been many beat-em-ups released over the years with the likes of Final Fight, Golden Axe, Turtles in Time, and it's still going strong with games like Scott Pilgrim and Dragon's Crown. But the ones that really got me hooked is the Streets of Rage series. In a typical 80s blockbuster fashion, a crime lord is controlling the city with violence and possibly drug trafficking. It is the 80s after all. I'm going to guess that Mr. X has quite a bit of the police force on his payroll, again 80s, which is why the cops aren't doing a damn thing about this guy. We play the first game as three ex-police members, Adam Hunter, Axel Stone and Blaze Fielding, in an attempt to clean up the streets ourselves. Plot hole! We're basically playing the game as vigilantes, which I'm fairly certain is illegal, so in the real world, this story wouldn't last very long. Saying that, in the first installment, using your special attack calls in some police backup in the form of a bazooka blast or raining bullets from a chain gun. If the cops have the weaponry to help us out every level, surely they could take out the bad guys themselves. Either way, it's a great feature that really helps out in boss battles, as these attacks can really knock their health down a good chunk. The series soundtrack was composed by Yuzo Koshiro, a legend in the 80s and 90s composing music for Ys, Return of Shinobi, ActRaiser and even Shenmue. I never really played this much as I did the second game, so the music never really stuck with me. For me, it has a few memorable tracks, but I love the overall 80s feel to it with some clear techno and hip hop influences. After battling through the 8 stages, you come face to face with Mr. X himself and have a few options. You can fight him there and then, fight your buddy if you're playing 2-player, or you can agree to become his right hand man only to get yourself sent straight back to stage 6. Thanks. Needless to say, your victory doesn't last long as they release Streets of Rage 2 a year later. Mr. X is still at large and poor Adam has been kidnapped. So, being the great friends that we are, we set out to get him back along with new characters. Along with Axel and Blaze, we now have Adam's brother Skate and Axel's friend Max Thunder, who just happens to be a wrestler. Welcome to Suplex City. This is my favourite of the series as it took everything great about the first game and amplified it. More detailed graphics, bigger sprites, more moves, slightly longer stages, better music, more inventive bosses. They really went all out on this one. The new characters add a bit more diversity in playstyles as the three characters in the original pretty much played the same. You no longer get help from your cop buddies with special attacks, but now each character gets two fancy little moves which can do some damage if they connect properly, but they also take health off you, so you can't just spam it throughout the game. Each character has their own moveset, which includes a Fury combo, a back attack, 3 jump attacks, 5 grapple attacks and a blitz attack. Plenty to change things up and make some interesting combos with. I absolutely loved the soundtrack from this installment, very early 90s, with one of the tracks sounding like the Shaman's Move Any Mountain. Probably because I would play this religiously every day, but I always find myself singing all the tunes every time I play. The majority of the soundtrack is just so upbeat it gets you right in the fighting mood. I can't really put my finger on one single thing that makes this game so great. All the updates really complement each other. The music wouldn't have the same effect if the gameplay was still slow, and the speed wouldn't feel the same if the sprites were still small, which probably couldn't be bigger without the more detailed graphics. It goes on. It really is just a great package which for me never gets old. And then came Streets of Rage 3. I actually first played this on the Sega channel back in the day and never saw it in the shops, leading me to believe this was one of those games that just never got released here in the UK. It wasn't really until about 10 or 15 years ago that I found out it did get released here, and that put me right on the hunt. I eventually got it a few years back complete in box for a decent price, and even though it's not the best in the series, I'm glad to have it in the collection. I digress though, I think this one gets a bit more stick than it deserves. It's not a bad game by any standards, it just doesn't really build upon Streets of Rage 2 enough for it to stand out. The third game does have a very nice running ability which was limited to only Skate in the previous game, and everyone has a cool roll technique that can be used to dodge enemies and obstacles and even help in 2-player so you can keep yourself separated and not end up beating each other up. Streets of Rage 3 adds new playable characters too, giving us a half cyborg, half scientist named Dr. Zan Gilbert in replace of Max. We're also able to unlock Mr. X's slave from the previous game Shiva, along with a kangaroo, because you know, kangaroos are fun. It's a shame we never got Adam back. The music in this installment is quite different from the previous. It feels a lot darker and heavier, It doesn't have any real memorable tracks for me, but it does a great job in bringing down the tone of the game as things get serious, despite playing as a kangaroo. The story is that Mr. X has hired roboticist Dr. Dom to create lifelike robots to replace the key city officials so that he can control the city. He's kidnapped the police chief and placed bombs around the city. He's really stepped up his game. Kudos. Streets of Rage 3 has multiple endings and is a tough one to truly beat and see the real ending. In order to do so, we must rescue the police chief in round 6 by destroying 2 switchboards, which can be a task and a half on your first try. Then we must defeat Dr. Dom on our way to Mr. X, who we find to be nothing but a brain, enclosed in some machine keeping him alive in some form. This is where he activates the bombs that are placed around the city and calls in Robot Y to prevent you disabling the bombs. You have 3 minutes to defeat this final boss to see the true ending. Although we defeated Mr. X, Dr. Dom was only put in an asylum, and it would have been great to see him escape as the setup for another sequel. We never got a Streets of Rage 4, and most likely we'll never see one, but we almost did. It was in development by Core Design for the Sega Saturn, but Sega pulled the Streets of Rage name when Core wanted it to port to other systems. Eidos ended up publishing the game, and it became Fighting Force. At the time, I loved the game, and it was the next best thing after Streets of Rage was buried. It had multiple stages, big 3D levels, guns, what more could you want? Well, playing this now makes me see how slow the game is. Sure, you can run, but it's not too great when mixed with dodgy camera angles. I played this a fair bit with a friend back in the day and it was a lot of fun for the time. I think the game gets more bearable the more you put into it, maybe that's why I enjoyed it so much. Having said that, it just wasn't Streets of Rage and we never got the sequel we wanted. We did, however, get an amazing fan game from Bomber Games. It took them over 4 years to put together Streets of Rage Remake, and within days of its completion and release, Sega ordered a cease and desist. Thankfully, due to the nature of the internet, the game can still be found, and it's the perfect way to remember the original games for what they were. The game was built from the ground up on its own engine, which perfectly mimics the gameplay styles of the originals. There's a few different ways to play it too. You can play it using the engines of each of the 3 games, or using the remake engine, which takes all the best bits for the ultimate fangasm. I don't think they've left anything out of this. All the characters are there. We get Adam back with some fresh sprites, and even Ash, who was taken out of Bare Knuckle 3 before it made its way out of Japan. The soundtrack has been remixed by a few people, taking Yuzo Koshiro's originals and adding samples from the obvious inspirations. See, it wasn't just me who made the Shaman link. They've cleaned up the storyline by adding cutscenes in the style of Streets of Rage 3, so we can kinda tell what the hell is going on and why some stages are based on boats and in factories. All in all, the Streets of Rage series on the Mega Drive and Genesis to this day remain my favourite beat 'em ups, and if you haven't already, use the power of Google to find the Streets of Rage remake and give it a blast for nostalgia's sake. So guys, that was my look at the Streets of Rage series for the Mega Drive and Genesis. Let me know in the comments down below what some of your favourite series are or some of your favourite beat 'em ups are. And I want to thank you for watching and I'll see you again in another video soon.